Masechet Yoma Daf Nun Zayin 57, and we are going to the next step of the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur, which is that he sprinkled on the inside in the Kodesh Kodeshim, and now he's going to go and sprinkle on the outside, and so we're going to study some details about that. So Tana Keshum Hazeh Eno Mazeh Ala Parochet Ela Keneged HaParochet. When he sprinkles on the parochet, on the curtain, he doesn't aim to be on the curtain itself, or rather in front of the curtain. Actually, the blood will end up on the floor in front of the curtain, like we see in this picture right here. It goes on the floor, right? It lands on the floor. So that's where he's aiming. Similar to the kapodet, where also it's ala kapodet and ifnei kapodet, but that means actually on the floor in front of the kapodet. So that's what the Braita says. And but then the Braita continues with an alternate opinion. Amar Rabbi Elazar b'Rabbi Yosef, ani re'itiha beromi, ve'hayu alea kama tipei damim shel par v'sa'ir shel Yom Kippurim. This is an amazing thing, like archaeologist here. Rabbi Elazar happened to be in Rome, and when Rome came and destroyed the Bet HaMikdash, they took with them all of the menorah, the shulchan. We have that on the Arch of Titus. Besides that, they also took the parochet, a very finely woven material, and they put it on display. We actually know that they put a lot of the items that they ransacked on display in Rome in something called the Temple of Peace. You can go there now. This is what it looks like if you go visit now. You just see the bottoms of some of the columns. If you want to see a reconstruction, this is what it looked like back in the day. Colonnade with open area and enclosed area. And if they would they would go and get all of the various things that they took from wherever they conquered and put it on display here. So it was ironically called the Temple of Peace because it was actually all the things that they won in war. But after they won all the war, then they said, see, now there's peace. So this was, in a way, it's not so different from the British Museum or the Louvre, and also shows all the things that those European countries took from the various colonies that they had. So apparently, this Tana went to Rome, and he went to visit. This was way after the Bet HaMikdash was destroyed. He lived like around 200. By the way, this Temple of Peace was built with money from the destruction of Jerusalem, from everything that they took, right? From the sacking of Jerusalem. So yes, we paid for this museum. All right, so it had some practical use because Rabbi Elazar was able to go there, and he says, I saw the parochet, and I saw that it had blood on it, and it was the blood of the Sa'id, of the Pad and Sa'id of Yom Kippur. So he thinks that the Kohen Gadol is supposed to sprinkle it on the parochet, on the curtain, not on the floor. Okay, now the Gemara asks a question on this Braita. How do you know what kind of blood it was? There is a couple of other korbanot that also you sprinkle the blood in the Kodesh towards the parochet. And that is a communal sin offering. For example, if the Sanhedrin makes a mistake and tells everybody this is allowed, or they tell everybody that this idolatry is allowed, and people follow Sanhedrin mistakenly. So then the Sanhedrin has to bring a korban chatat. That one is a very serious one, and its blood is sprinkled in the Kodesh. So we ask Rabbi Elazar, how do you know that this was blood from Yom Kippur, Pad and Sa'ir? Maybe it was from the Se'irim for communal sin offerings. The answer is the Chazada Abidi Kisidran. He saw that was in order, right? We saw that in Yom Kippur you do one and then seven, and you do it one right below the other in a neat line. So since it was in a neat line, he says this must be Yom Kippur. Okay, so we see according to the Rabbi Elazar, it should actually go on the curtain. Now we have another, it says Tanan, which is usually a Mishnah, but not always. Here in this case, it's not a Mishnah, it's a Braita. Here we have a parallel Braita. This Braita we just had before, we have another Braita that's very similar, except it says that it's in reference to the Paralim Davar Shel Sibur, the communal offering, a communal sin offering. So here's what it says: when when the Kohen is going to sprinkle the blood for the communal sin offering, it should not touch the parochet. But if it did, let's say he overreaches, he throws it. I mean, he throws pretty far this one, and he overreaches, and it does touch. It's okay. You don't have to worry about it. Does not. It's still valid. But he should try not to. You're not supposed to. והיו עליה כמה טיפי דמים של פד העלם דבר של ציבור ושעירי עבודה זרה. So here the Elazar says another testimony. I saw the parochet, maybe it's the same parochet that had two stains on it. I saw the parochet in Rome, and I saw the blood of these communal sin offerings. And now we ask the opposite question. How do you know it's for these communal sin offerings, for the general sin, or for Avodah Zarah? Maybe it was Yom Kippur blood that from the Pan and Seder of Yom Kippur. No, the Chazenu David, they look Sidran. They saw they were not in order. They were not on a line. And that shows it's not for Yom Kippur, it's for something else. Okay, we actually have, so we see we have two Baraitot that are very similar, and both of them is a machloket. The Tanakama says you aim for the floor, and the Elazar says I saw this in Rome. It could be that these are actually two versions of one Baraita. Maybe you only saw one thing, but it's remembered in two opposite ways. I think that's likely, but it looks like the Gemara is assuming that he saw on two occasions, or on one occasion, he saw blood that looks like this and blood not on the line that looks like that. So either way, he thinks that in all these cases, the Kohen Gadol or Kohen should aim for the curtain. The Elazar thinks. Chachamim say no. How would they explain the curtains that have these stains? Maybe he missed, and by mistake, it went on the curtains, but he's not supposed to be there. All right, so that is issue number one. Now we're going to ask a series of 4 questions about mixing. If the blood, now remember you have to do the Kohen Gadol does the blood of the pod and then of the sa'ir, and he has to do it in that order. Now, if they get mixed up before all the sprinkling, that's question number 1. If it gets mixed up in between the inside sprinkling and the outside sprinkling, that's going to be question number 2. If the 2 cups get mixed up and he doesn't remember which is which, that's question number 3. And if only some of the blood gets mixed up, but some of it is in the original bowls, that's question number 4. Okay, so let's answer all of them. Damim bedamim. What if the blood of the bull and the blood of the goat get mixed up? Mixed together, right? They get mixed together. You do eventually mix them after you do that, right? The order is sprinkling on the inside in Kodesh Kodeshim, sprinkling on the curtain, separate. All those are separate. Then you're supposed to mix them together and dab it on the Mizbach HaZahav in the Kodesh. But what if they got mixed up too early before you did any sprinkling? He says no problem. You could do take care of 2 bloods with 1 throw, so to speak. You just take, since it's mixed anyway, so you do 1 up and 7 down, and since it's a mixture of both the pod and the sa'ir, so you fulfilled both of them in 1 shot. Okay, that's what Abba said. Now Amaruha Kameh de Rabbi Yirmiyah. Amar Babla'e Tipsha'e. Okay, we have a great line here. So Rava is a 4th generation Babylonian Amorah. So they said this in front of Rabbi Yirmiyah, who's from Eretz Yisrael. And he said, those stupid Babylonians, Mishum de Daire Ba'arad Chashucha Amri Shema'ta de Machashchan. You know why he said that? Because they live in a dark land. That's why they say dark laws, right? They're all confused. They can't think straight. We have to give them some light from Eretz Yisrael. Okay, why is he so upset with this? Ha ka yahev lemala de sa'ir mekame mata de par. V'Torah amra v'chila mekaperet hakodesh kila adam apar ve'achar kach kila adam hasa'ir. Is because then you're going in the wrong order. What he ends up doing is giving the up of the sa'ir before the down of the pod, because since he does 1 up and he says this up is for pod and sa'ir, right? Because they're mixed up. He does it together. But that means he did the up for sa'ir, and then he was going to do the down for both the pod and the sa'ir. But that means he did the 1 up for sa'ir before the 1 down for pod. But that's not the way it works. You're supposed to do the whole pod first, up and down, and then sa'ir, up and down. You have to finish all that. right? And we learn this from Vechila. You finish each step, and then only then you go to the next step. So this is not good. This is not a good solution, Rava. Right? Your logic is dark. אלא אמר רבי ירמיה נותן אחת למעלה ושבע למטה לשם הפר, וחוזר ונותן אחת למעלה ושבע למטה לשם השעיר. So instead of Yirmiyah says, here's the solution. If the two bloods get mixed up in a bowl, so then you take a drop. In that drop, there's some pod and some sa'ir. So the first you have in mind for the pod. I'm doing the 1 up, 7 down for the pod. And then you go again and you do with the same bowl, but now you have in mind, this is for the sa'ir. I'm only concentrating on whatever molecules of this blood are from the sa'id, 1 up and 7 down. And that way you do it in order. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Now, case number 2. Let's say the ones that are inside, you did it properly. They were separate. But then the Kohen Gadol got mixed up and he mixed them together before he sprinkled on the curtain outside in the Kodesh. So now what do we do? Sava Rav Papa Kameh de Rava. Rav Papa is the 5th generation Babylonian, who's a student of Rava, the 4th generation Babylonian. And so he's thinking out loud. He's trying to solve the puzzle. And he says, Noten sheva lemata l'shem par u'l'shem sa'ir. V'chozev noten achat lemala l'shem sa'ir. So he says you do 7 down for the pod and the sa'ir, and then you do 1 up for the sa'ir. So he's trying to do really both with the same sprinkling, which again is not going to work. Amar le Rava ad hashta karu lan tipsha'eh v'hashta tipsha'eh de tipsha'eh. Rava says they already called us stupid for trying to do both sprinklings in one shot. All right, and now they're going to call us the stupid of the stupid. Because they already taught us, and now you're saying the same, making the same mistake, right? It's like bad enough to make a mistake one time, but then someone calls you out and you recognize it, and then you make the same mistake again, right? Call me foolish twice, right, on me. So that don't do that. Because in that case, he's trying to switch it up by doing the down first, and that way that down will be before the up of the next one. But it doesn't work because then you're doing the down of Sayyid before the up of Sayyid, and that's to do up first and then down. So that's no good. Instead, just do the same thing you did before. First do all the sprinklings for the pod, and then do all the sprinklings for the sa'ir on the outside, and all that is fine. Okay, now case number 3. נתערבו לו כוסות בכוסות, נותן וחוזר ונותן, וחוזר ונותן 3 פעמים. Okay, so now what happened is they didn't get mixed up into one bowl, but rather the Kohen Gadol can't remember, they're separate. But which cup is the pod and which bowl is the sa'ir? When he put them down, he picked them up, he doesn't remember which one's which. Okay, no problem. Here's what you do. You just do it 3 times. The whole idea is that you have to do pod first and then sa'ir. So what you'll do is he takes one of them, right? He takes the bowl first, and he does that, then the sa'ir. And if that's the correct order, then the third one that he does is just extra. And if he does the other way, if the sa'ir was one he did first, then forget that. The first one he did is just like nothing. He does the pod, second one's the pod, and then the sa'ir. Either way, somewhere in there, he did pod first and then sa'ir, and then he fulfilled all of them. Okay, so that's easy. Now, the last question, miksat tamim nitarbu lo, miksat tamim lo nitarbu lo. Some of them, he has two bowls, and some of the blood got mixed into a third bowl. But he also has the original 2 bowls, and yes, he knows which one's which. So in that case, when he's going to sprinkle on the inside and on the outside, for sure he'll use the bowls that are separate because he knows what they are. And the one that's mixed, he'll leave on the side. He's not going to use that to sprinkle because he doesn't have to. He has the separate ones. The question is regarding the mixed bowl. What is its status? is it called shirayim? Shirayim means leftover. Like when I have two separate bowls, I only sprinkle a little. The rest of it, what do I do with it? I pour on the bottom of the mizbeach, or on this foundation. So that's what the proper thing to do is. That's called shirayim. But another category of extra blood is called dichuyin. Let's say I have some blood as extra. I say I'm not going to use this. Right? It's dachui. It's pasul. So that since it was not usable, I don't pour it on the bottom of this mizbeach, but rather we pour it and we spill it into the canal that runs under Had Habayit. So it's poured out and poured out into the canal. So the question is, in this case, we have three bowls, one of the pod, one of the sayid, and one that's mixed. The one that's mixed, I'm not going to use. Is it left over, but still valid? Because, I mean, theoretically, if I didn't have the separate bowls, I could use it. Or is it dachui because I have the separate bowls? I'm going to use those. I'm not going to use the mixed one. So is it dachui? It has to go into the canal. That's the question. And we have two answers, opposite answers. Amar Papa. Afilu leman damar kos echad oseh chavero shirayim hane milehechadi ba'elim etav maseh yahev. Aval hay di ba'elim etav la maseh yahev la. We're going to see right down here, there's a machloket in a regular case where you have multiple bowls. Let's say you have a bull. Bull has a lot of blood, and you have small bowls. So you fill up multiple bowls with its blood. So there's one opinion there that says that the one cup that I use, let's say I only sprinkle from one of the bowls. The other bowls are called shirayim, and I put those on the bottom of the mizbeach too. In other words, they're still valid, even though I didn't use them. I could use them, and therefore those are valid. Papa says, even according to that, let's say, lenient opinion that calls them all shirayim, that's only because if I wanted to use those other bowls, I could have picked any of the bowls. But in this case, it's a mixture. The mixture bowl, I couldn't have used. I mean, if I only had it, I could have used it. But since I have the separate bowls, I'm going to use those. There's no way I'm going to use the mixture. So since I would not use the mixture, that one is dachui, and therefore it has to be poured out into the canal, into the river. Okay, so that's Rav Papa. That basically says, no, you got to take the mixture of the bowl and pour it out to the river. Amar le Rav Huna b'nei Rav Yoshua Rav Papa adraba says, I think the opposite. Afilu leman damar kos echad oseh chavero dachui. Even in the machloket we're about to see, even according to the one that says one bowl does make the other bowl dachui, right? Again, if I have multiple bowls, let's say from a pot, I have a lot of blood. I don't need to use it all. And if I take and I sprinkle only from one of them, the other bowls that I didn't use are called dachui. That's the other opinion there. It's the first opinion actually in the next baraita. Only over there does that Tana say that it goes into the river because I intentionally pushed it. I said, I'm not going to use that one. But in this case, I didn't do anything intentionally. I had these two bowls, Pod and Sayed. They got mixed up unintentionally. And I never said I'm not going to use the mixture. It just happened by itself. And because I never intentionally pushed it away, therefore, actually, technically, it's valid. And so all gets put on the mizbeach. Okay, so we have these two extreme opinions. There are no opinions that say that the machloket in this case is parallel to the machloket in the multiple bowls. And whoever says this one is shirayim will also say the other one is shirayim, right? Both of them are trying to give their opinions according to all opinions in the following baraita. Okay, let's see the actual baraita now. The Tanya. Lema'la hu omer vet damo yishpoch, ulemata hu omer vet kol dama yishpoch. In Vayikra chapter 4, regarding different types of chatat, it says in the first pasuk that the damo yishpoch, that you pour the blood on the bottom of the mizbeach, and in the next case it says kol dama, all the blood. So why does it say one place without it and one place with the word kol? So we're going to explain it. Here's now, this is all Tanakama, which is the opinion that Rav Huna is referring to. So minayin lechatat shekibel dama b'arba kosot v'natan mizeh achat umizeh achat shekulan nishpachin layesod tamod omar vet kol dama yishpoch. So let's say I have an animal and I collect its blood in 4 different bowls. And now I have to put them on the 4 corners of the mizbeach. And so I take one from each bowl, a drop from each blood, and put it on each corner of the Mizbeach. So I used all 4 bowls. Now the leftover in the bowls is obviously going to be shirayim. It was usable. I in fact used that bowl. The rest of it gets poured on the Mizbeach. That's why it says kol dama. All the blood gets poured on the Mizbeach. Now, how about another case? What if I only used one bowl, and from that bowl I sprinkled on all 4 corners, and I never used the other 3 bowls? So what about that? Talmud Omar, ve'et damo yishpoch, ahu nishpach le'yesod, ve'hen nishpachin le'ama. Since if you hear it doesn't use the word kol, it's telling us that in such a case, it's a limitation. No kol. Don't put all of them on the Mizbeach. Only the one you used goes on his back, and the rest of them get poured into the river. Okay, so that's Tanakama. He's the one that said that the extra bowls, the leftovers that you don't use, get poured out, and you don't use them. And this is the one that the Rav Huna said, yeah, but that's only because you decided not to use them, and you did it on purpose, whereas in this case, they got mixed up by mistake, and you didn't have in mind. So he thinks that even in our case, of the 3 bowls, you would put them all on the Mizbeach, even according to this opinion. Okay, that's the Tanakama. Now, Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Shimon. This is the opinion that Rav Papa was referring to. He says he disagrees. He omer, minayin lechatat shekibel dama be'arba kosot v'natan arba matanot me'achad mehen shekulan nishpachin layesod. So he's starting with the second case that he said before, that you had a chatat and you collected the blood in 4 different cups, and you gave the 4 matanot all from 1 cup. How do you know that nevertheless the rest are called shirayim, even though you didn't use them, and you poured on the mizbeach? Kol dama yishpoch. Right, so he says kol dama actually refers to that case, even though you only used 1. Now, question, Rabbi Eliezer ben Rabbi Shimon, according to that opinion, what about the other pasuk that doesn't have the word kol? What do you do with it? That's talking about the shiraim, the leftover that comes out of the throat that they didn't collect in a bowl, right? The blood that comes from the animal that goes on the floor, that you can't use. Everybody agrees you cannot put that on the mizbeach. That has to go down into the canal. But even blood that you didn't use is considered usable and shiraim, and therefore goes on the mizbeach. Rav Papa said about this opinion, and even he would agree that the one that gets mixed up, because you're not going to use the one that's mixed up. You really, you can't use it because you have the other one that's not mixed. So since you can't use it, it's called dachui. So it's worse than this case where it's usable, but it's just left extra, and you didn't happen to use it. All right. So now we finished all those 4 questions, and last item for today. After the Kohen Gadol finishes the inside and the outside sprinklings on the curtain, then he's going to go to the Mizbeach. When he goes to Mizbeach to dab on the 4 corners, first he mixes the bloods together. He takes the Sayyid and the Pad, he mixes it in 1 cup and mixes it back in the other cup, and he does it together. How do we know this? So let's see. Actually, it's a subject of a machloket. Tenan, keman de'amad me'arvin lakeranot. Our Mishnah follows the opinion of the Tana that thinks that you do mix them up before you put it on the corners of the Mizbeach. Ditmar, Rabbi Yoshia, Rabbi Yonatan, Chadamar me'arvin, v'chadamar en me'arvin. We actually have 2 Tanaim, and one says that you're supposed to mix them. The other says you're not supposed to mix them, that you put them separately on the Mizbach HaZahav. Rabbi Yoshia and Rabbi Natan, we don't know who said which. These Tanaim are actually very interesting and important because they're both students of Rabbi Yishmael. Our Mishnah and most of the rabbinic literature follows Rabbi Akiva. It becomes the dominant voice. And you have to kind of look hard to find the statements of Rabbi Yishmael. Luckily, we have the Mechilta from the school of Rabbi Yishmael, and you see there that his students, Rabbi Yoshia and Rabbi Natan, are the dominant voices. So anytime you see them, it's probable that they also studied with Rabbi Akiva, but it's probable that they are transmitting the voice of Rabbi Ishmael. Okay, so now let's see who said which one. We're going to try to figure it out. Tistayem de Rabbi Yoshia, hu de'amar me'arevin. Rabbi Yoshia, he's the one that says, yes, to mix them together. And so he's the author of our Mishnah, or our Mishnah follows his opinion. Damar af agav de la ketiv yachdav keman dichtiv yachdav dameh. Even though pasuk doesn't say together, it's as if it says together. What pasuk are we talking about? Right here. The yeah. Oh, so 18, right? Remember, we did the inside, we did the outside, and now 18 says, "V'yasa el hamizbeach." He's going to go to the mizbeach, the inner mizbeach, asher difnei Adonai, v'chiper alav, v'lakach midam apad u'midam asa'ir, v'natan lakot mizbeach zahav. So all it says in the pasuk is you take the blood of the bull and the blood of the goat, and you put it on the corners of the mizbeach. It doesn't say to mix them together or not mix them together. It doesn't say, right? It doesn't say either way. So the Yoshia says, it's as if it says, Yachtav, so you mix them together and then you put it on. Okay, so he's just assuming that. So therefore he must be the author, the opinion that our Mishnah follows. But then the Gemara says, no, maybe afilu tema Rabbi Yonatan hu shanehachad ichtib achat. Even Rabbi Yonatan, who would not necessarily interpret this pasuk in Vayikra to mean that they're together, but there's another pasuk. This pasuk is in Shemot chapter 30, which is describing the Mizbeach, how to build the Mizbeach HaZahav, and then it says what to do with it. This Mizbeach HaZahav, B'chiper Aaron al Kanotav achat bashana, the Kohen Gadol, who represented as Aharon here, will atone for it, with it, on its four corners once a year, meaning on Yom Kippur. Midam chatat Yom HaKippurim, and it says again, achat bashana. So since it says the word achat, it actually says the word achat twice. So literally it's talking about once a year on Yom Kippur. But since it says the word achat, it can also mean together, right? That you mix the bloods together before you put it on the Mizbeach. And so maybe to be Yonatan, he uses that pasuk, even if he doesn't use the pasuk in Vayikra. And so therefore, maybe they agree, both Rabbi Yoshia and Rabbi Yonatan agree that you're supposed to mix it together. Tanya de la kishinuyan. But now we reject this last statement. No, Rabbi Yonatan does not think that. I mean, first of all, we have a braita before that says one opinion says this and one opinion says that. So, and here we have the full baraita that explains it, that elaborates. Tanya de lakshinyan velakar midam apar midam asayir. That's pasuk in Vayikra. We learn from this, since it says you take this blood and that blood, we learn for that it has to be mixed together. No, you dab it on the mizbeach, first the pot and then the sayir separately. Amar lo Rabbi Yoshia, v'lo kivan ne'emar achat. Rabbi Yoshia says, oh, there's another pasuk in Shemot that says one time a year, but also he learns from that one dabbing for the whole thing, right? You atone for it with one action, so therefore you have to mix it together to do one action. So that's a good proof of Rabbi Yoshia. Amar Rabbi Yonatan. Rata says the pasuk in Vayikra sounds like it's the opposite. Midam apad and midam asayir separately. So imken lama ne'emar achat, amalecha achat v'lo shetay midam apad, achat v'lo shetay midam asayir. According to Yonatan, why does it say once in Shemot to teach me that I should only sprinkle once from the pod and once from the sayir, not like the others in the curtain where we do once and then 7 times. Right, 8 times altogether. No, and those sprinklings are 8 times. This one is only once from this and once from that. So he still agrees it's one, but there's 2 bloods, so it's going to be one of each. So that's how he could use that word. Okay, so that we established that there are in fact 2 opinions, and Rabbi Yoshia is the one that says you mix them together. Our Mishnah follows Rabbi Yoshia, and we end with one last baraita that just gives the opinion of Rabbi Yoshia. Tanya idach v'lachar midam apar midam asay shumar rabin. So we learn from Vayikra that they get mixed together with each other. Actually, that pasuk is ambiguous. Maybe it means midam apad, comma, and then separately midam asayir, and you do sprinkling of each separately. No, that's why the pasuk in Shemot comes to say once. One action, ustamak Rabbi Yoshia, and this unattributed baraita follows Rabbi Yoshia. So in fact, our Mishnah is following only opinion of Rabbi Yoshia, and not the opinion of Rabbi Yonatan. So this is fantastic that the Talmud today brought us all the minority opinions in this regard, and also remember with the curtain that it does go on the curtain. So for each of the things that our Mishnah assumes that this is the way it is, and we follow that, we get to learn some of the older opinions, minority opinions that said differently. Baruch Adonai L'olam, amen, amen.